Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the OutMarket.Pro podcast. I'm your host, Mark Stein, and we're really glad to have you back again. I've got an interesting guest with me today. Larry Davis is the owner of CBS um, Com Community Business Solutions, and the .com goes on the end. He is a managed service provider, providing a multitude of different services for businesses. Um, and we'll let him tell you a little more. He's also in Tampa Bay, where I'm located, and met him just recently and have been really impressed with the depth and breadth of his knowledge. So, Larry, thanks so much for being with us. Glad to have you.
Appreciate the invite, Mark.
All right, so let's jump right in. Why don't you start by giving an overview of what services typically are included and that you offer as part of managed service provider services?
Well, managed service provider is a term that usually only people in the business know what that term means. So to translate from geek to English, we provide security services, updates to your computer, monitoring, remote and on-site support. So if you have an issue, we can hop on your computer from anywhere. I've been in Australia and worked on someone's computer in Tampa. I've been in Tampa and worked on someone's computer in Jamaica. So as long as you've got internet, we can help you. So that's our primary, and that's per endpoint. So each computer is monitored and protected. And if the client has an issue, they open up a ticket, and one of our techs will get with them and help them get to resolution as best as possible. You want to have a plan in place before something happens, not after. You don't wait until after you get into a car wreck to get car protection insurance. You get insurance ahead of time. You don't wait till you retire to start planning your retirement. So don't do that in the computer world, especially if you're a small business and you count on your computers being running at max capacity and max capability and as fast as possible, and even more importantly, secure as possible.
Let me jump in with a quick question. Did I
Two,
hear you correctly that you're monitoring 24/7, and in many cases, if there is a problem, you'll know it before I'll know it?
yes, had a great example of that. Had a client about 40, 50 employees. They have both computer services and our voice over IP or phone services with us. So they're living off the internet in terms of to do business and be productive. So I'm driving to a meeting at about 7 o'clock, 7:10 in the morning. I get an alert and it says their server's down. Now, if your laptop's offline, no big deal. Many people shut their laptop down anyway. But if your server's down, that's pretty critical. So I then look at the rest of the computers and everyone is offline. That's not normal. So I pull into the parking lot. I see, hey, Mark, good to see you. I'm leaving. We're like, Larry, you just came here to come to the meeting. Like, I've got to go. I was in this building of probably 8 companies like my customer in terms of size, 40, 50, 60 employees. I was the first one on site because of our reporting let us know that there was an issue. It turned out to be internet-based, so nothing I could have done. But when internet was restored, I was there to make sure everything was back up and running properly.
Got it. What percentage of your clients are, and I do want to get back to the overview, but what percentage of your clients are in the region and what percentage remote that you can't easily get to?
90% are local, just only because of my marketing and where I target my services. Can I service outside, and do I service outside of Tampa? Yes, I've got one client in particular that probably 5 or 8 of his employees work remote, one of them being in New York.
Okay. And I assume that if it's not cost effective for you to fly somewhere to take care of a hardware problem in California, that you've got people either in your network or that you have met, or maybe in a national association that you could call on to be boots on the ground at that client's office.
Exactly. There's contracts and relationships we have, but with companies for that type of situation. Haven't had to use it, fortunately, because usually it's something, most problems aren't big in that regard. It's more software related type of thing. And if it's something simple, hey, Mark, push that button, unplug it, plug it back in. You've heard that. So I haven't
Reboot.
needed to use the service, but it is available, correct?
Got it. Okay, let's go back to the overview. So we've got security, monitoring, each laptop, desktop, keep going.
And server, yeah. And so then it's remote support most of the time. 90% of the time, it's really just something we can remote onto. I can look and see if your computer's online, hop on, and address the issue. Um, then while I'm there, what's next? What else is happening? Another service we provide is what's called voice over IP or company phone lines. It's allowing you to take calls from your cell phone using a cell phone app, just as if you're sitting in the office. Go back to pandemic. When we first went on lockdown, this office, everyone went through the receptionist that she transferred. She took her physical phone home, plugged it into her internet at the house. Everyone else signed on to either a desktop app or a cell phone app. And she was transferring calls just like everyone was sitting in the office side by side. And then when they call out from the cell phone, it shows the work number, not their personal cell phone. So you protect the customer, you protect the employees from giving out their cell phone, you protect the customer from the employees not giving out their cell phone to the customer, and you enhance the communication. At the end of the day, it's about being able to communicate effectively with your clients and your staff so that you can make more money.
And I think a lot of us ignore the repercussions of having our employees use their cell phones, especially if they're in sales, because if they move on, they've got all the numbers, and especially if they move on to a competitor, the client has their number, their cell phone number. Talk about that a little bit.
Mark, I don't know if I told you that story or not, or you just were thinking about it, but seriously, yeah. So within the last month, I picked up a client, and what happened was his competitor, all sales calls were funneled to one particular person on the sales team, or maybe she was the only salesperson, I don't know. But all the sales calls were funneled to this person's cell number. Well, they had a dispute, a disagreement, whatever it was. I don't know that detail. And the salesperson left the company or was let go and brought aboard somewhere else. And now they're actually trying to start their own business. And they've got all of the phone numbers. So I got this client because he said, we're not having that in my house, because he didn't want that to happen in his space. And so that original company is probably going to be greatly impacted because all of the contacts are with the person that's no longer employed. So that's critical. I've talked about it, but I've never actually seen it experience the real scenario.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a theory. I mean, a theory, but I mean, it's a realistic one, but to see it actually happen, wow.
Yeah, I've been reading more about it, and there's some software, independent software, I don't remember the name of it, that focuses on that problem, and making sure that it's the office number or a virtual number that the
Right.
person has.
And what's good about it, more protection, is if the employee is no longer there for whatever reason, good, bad, indifferent, or their phone stolen, all you've got to do is go to the website, change the password, and everyone's locked out of that. They can't access any of the company data.
And then you've got access to that number,
Right.
The virtual number or the office number. Got it.
Right. And you can just reassign it to the next employee, or just, once, if it's a lost phone type situation, once the employee gets a new phone or whatever, you just reset the password, give them the new password, and then they're back in business.
Good. I keep interrupting you with questions and not letting you get through to the whole umbrella, but keep going. I'll come back to it each time.
So those are the two key services that I provide directly. But we also act as a consultant. We sit down and sit here, Mark, where are you today? Where are you going to be in 4 years? What's the game plan? Oh, you tell me, Larry, I'm relocating, and I would have some workers remote, some workers in state, in-house, some workers overseas. So then we'll design a strategy around that. Because what I may design for you to do today, if you're staying in that office space with everyone there, is different than what we may design for you if you've got half people remote, half people on site. So we sit down there and then I can go shop services. So now I'm your consultant, I'm your advocate. I can go shop services and say, hey, Mark, let's look at these particular products and see if this might be a good fit for you. And if that's the case, then we'll get the provider online and run contracts and do what have you. And at that case, no cost to you. I'm just here to advise, and the provider pays. Actually, I get paid by the provider.
Okay.
And then last part is I'm a huge networker. So I'm also asking again, what else are we looking for? Do you need merchant services? Do you need credit card process? I've got somebody. Do you need supplemental staffing? I know a great guy, Mark Stein guy, that can provide some great help and support for your growing team. So I'm constantly looking for ways to make connections.
And I don't know about you, but it really feels good to me when I make a good connection and somebody really needs the service. It just it's one of the more fulfilling parts of my business, and why I enjoy networking as much as I do.
So yeah, that's how I started my company. At one point, I was a single dad of 3 kids, no daycare, no babysitter, just me and the 3 kids, 2 in diapers, twins, 6 months old, and I had time to go to the gym 2 hours a day, and I would use all 1 hour and 59 minutes of it. I met a guy while there, and his name was James Brown, and he was a master connector. You'd say you're looking for personal insurance. Yeah, I've got somebody. Let me call Jamie. And he'd pick up the phone. Hey, Jamie, I know we haven't talked in a year, but Mark needs auto insurance. He was that good. So we would play racquetball. It was free. Bring people in. We'd play racquetball. And then time passed. I now remarried, have 5 kids, working from home. And I get a phone call. Hey, Larry, we haven't talked in a little while, but we used to play racquetball together with JB. So I have a project for you. It was a $5,000 referral in 2001, Mark. All because of one guy. The genius of his mind was listening for keywords and connecting people. So that started my business in 2001. There's still a client today that one-time $5,000 check has now become a client that's been here since 2001. And that started my business. And so eventually my full-time job got shipped away, was outsourced. And so I said, okay, let's take this thing that I've been doing and turn it into something. And so when that happened to me with layoffs from this major company, there were many people just stuck and lost and didn't know what to do with themselves because they'd been stuck in a corporation. All I did was say, okay, let's stop playing with this thing and make it real. That was 2011. So all from one referral, one guy remembering who I was and what I did and making that connection. So I do the same. So yes, when you talk about fulfilling, you know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. Let's talk about COVID and remote work. That may have been the biggest shift with your business and with many businesses. Talk about what that was like when that hit, and all these businesses are scrambling to readjust their communication and all that. What was that period like for you, and what do you see as the things that have stuck since then? Because we haven't gone back to where we were, and I don't think we ever will.
Don't think we need to.
So what was that like?
So I started out working for a corporation, and then I had a manager tell me he had an idea, a project. He wanted me to work from home. So this is a big corporate company with the white shirt and the dark tie. It may give you a hint as to the 3-letter company I'm talking about. Very, got to be in the office and, very rigid. And he says, you're going to work harder. I said, what do you mean? He says, if you have an idea, you're going to jump on it then. If you have to wait till you come back to the office the next day, you'll probably forget about it. You'll get interrupted while you're working the process out in your mind. And what he didn't say, but I know he also meant, was you're probably not going to bill me for the time when you thought about it at home versus if you were coming into the office. So so I started doing that along probably 90, 96, 98, 98. So I was used to working remote, and this manager taught me back then that it doesn't matter when it's done, where you do it from. Is it done when I need it? Are the deliverables met? That's all I care. Not that's all I care about, but that's the key thing. So I was used to working remote for years. When I grew my company starting in 2011, I hired one person on site, but then I've always had remote workers. Like right now, one of my employees works in New Orleans. She remotes onto one of my computers every day. We talk, we share. But I say that because of when it came around to COVID, my company already knew what to do. I've been telling you about, hey, we've got these apps on your cell phone that you can work from home. We've got these ways to do it where you can work from home. They didn't want to hear it. So I'd already been prepping them, obviously not for that reason, but I'd already been prepping them of the idea. And I did some workshops and talking about you've got to get where you can and where it makes sense. You've got to get out of the mindset of I need to see you in the office to think you're productive. Because just because you're in the office doesn't make you productive.
Mm-hmm.
The key is, Mark, get me that report by Friday at 2:30. If you work at 4 a.m. or 10 p.m. or noon, why does it matter? Get that the report was done correctly and on your desk by 2:30 p.m. if that's when it needed to be. The rest really shouldn't be that important. So it was just getting them to shift mindset.
And the clients, were they panicked? Were you able to get them switched over into a system that worked for them in their new situation quickly? What was it like? And I figured that you've been working remotely, but my question was more about your clients and how they
Right.
adjusted.
They were halfway there and didn't know it. Because of the way my belief and the way you can work your business, a lot of stuff is already put in place. Like your Microsoft Office all of it's in the cloud already. If you've got everything on your Office, Microsoft 365, or even your G Suite, if all of the information is already in the cloud, then you can work. A lot of their applications, I have a lot of clients in the lending and title industry. Most of their stuff's online anyway.
Right.
So it's just a matter of syncing or whatever makes sense, whether they have a home computer or they're taking their laptop home. It's just making sure the data is in sync, and they can do most of their work.
Got it. And I was one of the few people that was not complaining about COVID. First of all, there's nothing I really enjoy doing that involves large crowds of people and that sort of thing. So I had been working remotely, and my whole team had been working remotely for years. So we had zero transition, and I still feel like if I have 4 or 5 Zoom meetings in a day, some of it networking, some of it client service, that's all the socializing I need. I go to the gym, I may go for a walk, take my dog out, but I'm just as happy as a clam. And I did not broadcast it during COVID because there were a lot of people really suffering and lonely and really feeling isolated. And I never felt that way. So
Yeah, so I didn't either, and I heard people complain about a little bit to your opposite of so many Zoom calls, so many, it was efficient. Us being tech people, I could hop on a Zoom call, see 15 people, identify I want to talk to these 2 or 3 people, or none, and all it cost me was Zoom time. No, I didn't have to drive anywhere for that. Didn't have to spend parking, gas, lunch. I'm sure you networked and been to meetings where you made no connections whatsoever, and you lost all that drive time. You lost money for whatever else you bought. Maybe you paid tickets to get in. This way, I could say, okay, I need to talk to this guy. I need to talk to that guy. Shoot him an email, and maybe we got together for coffee afterwards. If not, nothing. Time is important, but if not, that was all it was lost was that Zoom time.
Yep. And I feel like I connect with people almost as well, sometimes better, um, because I'm not worried about the time. This is networking sort of thing.
Hmm.
And most of my clients I've never met in person, because my clients are all across the country. In fact, I'm going to a conference that many of them will be at in Jacksonville next month. So I'll meet a lot of them in person for the first time. So, but let's get back to you. Um, one of the things I'm following, and the last podcast was with a former IT security senior executive, talking about who just left the security industry and IT industry. Um, and he was so glad, given how fast and how challenging AI is coming on. So talk a little bit about security in general and what's the most important thing to have in place. And if you'll relate it to some of the challenges that we can anticipate. The head of OpenAI said, what's likely to happen is going to be something that nobody expected to happen. We didn't prepare for it. So
Right.
it could very well come from left field, right field, above or below. But anyway, talk about some fundamentals of security, network security, computer security, and how AI could possibly throw a wrench into that.
So a lot of people first think of AI as Chat GPT, but it's way more than that. it's systems learning patterns and guessing that based off of all the algorithm of what's been happening, that this is about to happen. So yeah, and as far as like Chat GPT, it's a tool. AI is a tool. You can use it for good, you can use it for bad, just like your computer. So security, you want to keep it tight as possible. You don't want, again, wait to a problem to happen to go ask for help. While some of the products off the shelf are good, you need more robust solutions than just a product you can go buy at your local computer store. That to me are key things. When people worry about it replacing jobs, well, a horse and wagon replaced people doing things manually. Then tractors replaced people using horses and wagons. It didn't hurt the economy. It enabled people to do more. And if you're doing more, you're selling more. You're hiring more staff. You're generating more product. So it moves things forward. So I'd say don't be afraid of it. Understand that things like ChatGPT are tools, and other products that can predict things, patterns based off of past patterns. Their tools, use them. Now, with that, don't use the same password for everything because now you fall into predictability.
Do you like password lockers?
I personally do, yeah. And I don't know if this sounds wrong or sacrilegious religious to some, but I'm talking to you from a MacBook right now, even though most of my business is in the PC space. I like both products, and again, they're both tools. Do I like one over the other? Possibly, but end of the day, it's a tool. Use a tool for what it's for. But yeah, I use a password. Mine generates its own passwords and saves them, and it's on lockdown and secure. Yeah, so I am a fan of of mine for sure, which is actually the one that Mac provides.
Got it. And do you have a particular antivirus software that you like, or maybe a couple of them that you could mention? And how do you feel about using VPNs?
So what particular softwares we use are Kaseya and Sophos for our monitoring and our antivirus, our endpoint protection. Sophos also for our firewall, and firewall is that layer of protection that internet from the internet to your building. So when you think of security, think of an onion and different layers, or think of your house in different layers of security. You may have the alarm, you may have a lock, you may have a Rottweiler or a gun. So in the security world, you have that too. The firewall is that first layer. Then there's protection on the server, protect if you have one, protection, a third layer of protection on the computer. But the most important protection is educating the clients, indicating the users, educating the users. You got to do that.
Don't click
Because
on anything that you don't know what it is or even suspicious. Number
and,
one.
and it's number one, and painfully financially, I've seen some huge hits. Again, I mentioned I have title companies for clients and lending. I've seen people wire $300,000 to nowhere. And the one in particular, the most recent one in particular, the guy thought about it after he hit send, then called the title company, and the title company said, "Nope, we did nothing. That was not us. I'm sorry." And then he, of course, called me to make sure we had everything locked down properly, and we did, and it had nothing to do with the client. It was my client. It was the hackers figuring out what was going on and then intercepting, pretending to be them by changing the email address around a little bit. Yeah, so don't click. I have my clients, they'll ask me questions. I never give a straight answer. I never give a yes or a no. Because it's like, hey, Larry, does this look suspicious? If this looks suspicious, is it legitimate? And my answer is, you tell me what you think and why. And so that the goal is that they'll start training themselves and thinking before they click more than not. When it comes to VPNs, yes, I'm a fan. Huge fan of that. When it comes to public internet use, I'm a fan of the products like Norton VPN and some of the other products. I'm a fan of those because it's easy for me to just set up my Wi-Fi and name it Coffee Spot and look just like the coffee spot you're sitting at. And if you're not paying attention, you click on it, and now I'm starting to gather all your important information.
Hmm. Other, let's finish up on security. Other tips on staying secure as you can be. Maybe out in public. Probably don't ever go on an open Wi-Fi without VPN, public
Yes, correct.
Wi-Fi.
Yep. Again, and part of that goes back to you don't know what they're collecting, and you don't know if they're actually the company you think they are.
Mm-hmm.
Say, I'm a big fan of that. Another one we haven't really mentioned is, especially for work from home, don't let your kids use your profile. You've got, well, first, I encourage a VPN, remote access, remote desktops for the client to have for their work from home users. So they have to log into a system and nothing is kept on the actual hard drive, especially if it's a home machine. And then the next step would be to lock your profile down with password that the family doesn't have. And if other family members need to use that computer, create a separate profile for them, so that at least they're not logging in. It's not an admin access, so that they can log in, especially if the children need to do certain things for homework. Okay, let them do that, but not on your profile. I've had a couple times where one client kept complaining about their OneDrive and it being in sync. Well, the child kept logging on with their permission and switching what OneDrive they were using. So information is getting crossed, and nothing stopping that that family member from accidentally deleting an important document or accessing an important document and seeing information that I don't want you to see I don't want your child to see my financial records.
Right. What about, that brings up an important point, about kids and computers. Should they, if they're 12 and above, should they each have their own? What kind of counseling should you give them about security, other than don't click on something you don't know what it is? Don't talk to strangers.
Right. I don't do that much because my clients are all business to business. That's where my focus is. Um, but again, if you can separate profiles for each user, that helps them separate their information. If you feel you need to make sure they're not, don't make them admin if you feel that there's a reason to, especially if they're in a heavy gaming, it's easy for them to get tricked up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not a gamer. I don't deal with the gaming environment because of my target market, but they do a lot of stuff, and those kids are some sharp kids learning a lot of technical stuff. So that means we're also learning technical stuff to fool you.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, I had a thought and it just escaped me. Related to kids. It's gone. Um, easy come, easy go. Um, what let's dig a little deeper into voice over IP. Oh, I know what it was. A new profile is the same thing as a new user on the computer, like on a PC. It's setting up a new profile, if you will, to use your term, so that they can only enter. It's like a new person coming onto the computer, and they can't
Yes.
enter if they're not entering your profile with a login and password, with a password, then they're on a totally separate part of the computer, correct?
Yes. Correct. Yeah.
And that's how we access some of our clients' computers with a new user and a remote login. And we cannot see their logins, passwords, bookmarks, favorites to keep us working separately on their computer.
Right. But also with that, though, I still caution you about giving each profile admin access, because while I may not be able to see passwords, I might be able to access data
Okay,
on the other profiles of the other users.
got it. Okay. So let's talk about voice over IP and dig a little deeper into that. It's been around for a while, and some companies initially focused exclusively on it. It does seem to be sort of packaged with other services now. But talk about give us a little depth of understanding about how it works, and then talk about benefits and drawbacks of voice over IP.
Gotcha. Okay. So the voice over IP internet protocol. So basically, your systems run over the internet, tied to the internet. So what happens is you can log onto a web portal and make all the changes you want, all the changes you need. You can set up things like a sales team, put 5 people on the sales team as a queue or a group. So when you press 1 for sales, it rings these 5 people, and however you decide, whether that be first come, first serve, so all phones ring at the same time, or ring Larry, then Mark, then Kara, then Ashley, or always, or rotate. If Ashley got this call, Mark's on queue to get the next call. So it can do that. And then when you press 2 for scheduling or billing, it then goes to another 3, 4, 5 people. So it really
And all
allows you to,
all that's managed in software.
yes,
So
online.
very easy to manage, not hardware.
Exactly. And what's great about it is the moment you hit save to a change, it instantly takes place. You can do things like set company hours. So 8 to 5, it rings this way. 5:01, it does something different. It goes to the after hours queue. or you're 8 to 12 and you have a lunch from 12 to 1, then you come back from 1 to 6, whatever. You can set all of it up again online, and that will affect your physical phone, a soft phone or an app for your cell phone. I don't know if it'll show up anymore. There we go. Or even a desktop. So come up on the desktop app and you can take calls from the computer. Cool about it is we could be on this call and I could come up here and hit switch from the computer to my cell phone and now take the call and finish it, leaving the office. Really neat feature. You keep your phone number, you never lose your phone number. So you just what's called porting it or transfer it from whoever your current carrier is, maybe Frontier or Spectrum, over to the carrier we provide. We select as best. And I say that because I'll act as your consultant and we'll look at different options in different companies and find out the plan that makes the most sense for you. Maybe maybe this company's best, but you've had a bad experience, so you don't want to look at that company. Maybe you just need cheap price. Okay, well then you don't want this company. You don't want the company that has the best product because, as you know, the best product probably has a better sticker price, has a higher sticker price. You can schedule, let's see here, you can transfer calls. While we're talking, hold on, let me hit transfer and send it over to extension 3. Extension 3 may be in Hawaii. No one knows the difference. You can have calls. It has a Zoom-like capability and feature. It has for call recording and doing dictation, transcribing with amazing. There's AI there that's really picking up the software and the conversations. It's got fax capability. You can have fax capability for those 10 people left in the world that still fax. There's some of them that exist. And the benefits are, again, being able to work from wherever you've got internet or your cellular data. You can work from there and act as if everyone's just sitting here in the same room, working side by side.
Are there drawbacks over the old way, hardware-based systems? If the internet goes down,
and you got
still use your cell phone.
You use your cell phone.
Okay.
If they both go down, you probably got a bigger issue anyway.
Really? You're going to be looking for the nearest mountain to jump off.
All right. Or that's because there's a hurricane coming through it. So, I did have, when I was doing a demo using in this case, the company is Ring Central, using their video conferencing service, just like Zoom. And I'm in Ohio doing the demo on my computer, and they did lose internet. Ohio didn't know how to handle everyone using their air conditioning at the same time because they're not used to it, I guess. Electricity went down, internet went down. So electricity went down, it cut off your router, so your internet's down. So I just picked up my cell phone, pulled up the app, and it said, take call from, switch to this device, and pretended like it was the plan.
Very good.
Another great feature that I benefit is when you call out using the app, it shows the company number, not the personal number, not the personal cell number. And we talked about that a minute ago. I watched a guy tell a client, he left him instructions at like 4:50. I happened to be there. Hey, Mark, I'm going to send you this documentation. Once you fill it out, send it back to me. And they're like, okay, well, I'll call you as soon as it's done. They're like, the system shuts my calls down at 5 o'clock. I can't take a call after 5 o'clock. He could, but he used that to train his customers that, no, we're not calling me after 5 o'clock on this. It can wait till the morning.
Are there particular industries that work well with your type of business? And are there industries that aren't such a good fit for your type of work?
So we're focused on business to business. So we are not looking for someone who lost their pictures on their computer, just plain can't get their printer to work at home. Facebook posts like that are usually someone looking for the cheapest and temporary thing. We're focused on long-term contracts uh, a monthly contract based on the number of users, both in phones and computers. And the industries that are good for us are lending and title, because they have a lot of compliance things to deal with. We understand their industry, we understand their software that they are using. So we love lenders. We can talk about the software that they're using that's not. Customers look at the computer and say it all belongs to us. But that's not the case. The software is the software from the supplier they're working with. But we've got to understand some of the nuances of different softwares used by those industries. Trades are good. You are, especially if they've got a fleet, a team, that has to communicate back to the office. We've talked about not sharing personal cell numbers, so the trades are good for us. They know how to do what they do. They know electric, they know plumbing like nobody's business. They don't know computers. We don't know plumbing. We don't. So they're good at what they do. They don't have the patience for what we do. And the reverse is the same. I don't give me a wrench. I don't know what to do with it. So those are good for us because we can help them in the area where they're weak and just let them focus on doing what they do best.
What about other professional services like legal, insurance? Insurance has a lot of compliance.
Insurance has a lot of compliance, and all the financial industry. Your lending, your financial planners. Those are all heavy on making sure the data is protected. Your medical, we've got doctors' offices. Obviously they've got HIPAA. They've got a lot of data that needs to be protected, and also needs to make sure it's safe because the content. I've got to swerve a little bit just for a quick, not plugging anyone in particular, but cyber liability insurance. That can be key to your business. That can hurt your business if there is a breach. Because as you know, there's nothing perfect and there's nothing 100%. It's a cat and mouse game within the cybersecurity world. As soon as you get something fixed, they find another way in. Then they got to fix this. So it's a constant cat and mouse game. So you want to have a cyber liability policy. And so check with your professional insurance company. I know a couple that I recommend to make sure you've got that covered. So that's key, though, to make sure you're protected. And to think about one thing I haven't talked about is thinking about the cost of downtime. I saw just something at a summit I was just at this week or last week, excuse me, that it's $6,000 an hour. It can be $6,000 an hour for downtime. So make sure when you think about labor, your staff not being able to work, you think about your clients, your reputation. Hey, I tried to call you. I had a deal for you, but you couldn't answer your phone or your computer froze up. That can be quite expensive. The downtime, the cost of not using a service like mine is worth more. It costs more than the cost of using us.
And plus, you can set them up so they can be hybrid. And if you have to send everybody home, they'll still be able to work from home, especially if there's a problem there with the server and that sort of thing.
Thanks for the reminder. I have a legal company that was their issue. Their office was known to go down. Internet was known to go down. So we put everyone remote, or make sure, for those that came in, they came in. But if they needed to work remote or wanted to work remote, they VPN'd, had a little remote desktop connection and to a cloud server. And now if the office goes down, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Again, I had something pop in and pop right back out. It'll come back. So your services are usually paid by the desktop, by the computer, and that's how it's structured.
By the user, yes, whether that be a computer or a phone, that's how we base our pricing.
And it did come back to me. just magic. So, especially if you've got a large number of people in the office and you're doing voice over IP, you're putting a lot of demand on your internet service. Um, do you have a rule of thumb, just in general, for sizing the internet? Is a T1 line needed sometimes because of the demand? Um,
Good question. One that I'm glad you brought up because I hadn't thought about it to bring up, but it's worth bringing up. Depending on the size of the company and the demand, I may suggest you have failover internet. So maybe you have Frontier as a primary provider and have Spectrum as a backup, as a failover. That way, and there's a switch that we put on there that way, if Frontier goes down, Spectrum can take its place. And then as soon as Frontier comes back online, it automatically switches.
what if it's just an overload? You've got too much demand from your primary. Can some of the demand split off to that secondary? Or is it fail pickup only?
You can do different things, like you can separate if in the IT dream world, I might put all of your voice over IP on one circuit and all of your computers on another. We can do things like prioritize what gets priority. That's the word. And in most cases, we'll actually put the phone priority over the internet, because you can stand a little blip or a little pause in downloading. You'll just think it's the site itself. But if you get a break in the phone service, you might lose the call.
Mm-hmm.
So we might prioritize phone over internet, over computer service. But yeah, so there's tricks. That's the things. That's the discovery portion of when you're when you come into an office.
Let me mention two phenomenon. One that I think became very painfully obvious during COVID, and that is that some people seem to just intuitively pick up how to work on a computer. And it's nothing for them to learn a new skill. Some people, it's just foreign to them, and no amount of coaching seems to get them over it. I have a derogatory term for that person, and I won't share it, but it really became obvious and it does seem to relate somewhat with age, but I think not necessarily, because some people are whizzes on it. Younger people seem to pick it up better. They're not afraid of it. But I think COVID really divided us between those who are comfortable and fluent with computers and the internet and those who aren't. Did you
I
see
can see
that?
that. Yeah, I can see that. And also your desire to learn new things. How afraid of you are trying new or change?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of that. I just some personal. I know my mother wants to try and learn things, so she doesn't want to be left out. So, no, she's not a natural, but she's determined.
And can do it. The other phenomenon, I'm curious if you see it on a regular basis, but I've noticed it and I've adjusted to it. And that is the intensity to which I protest that it is the hardware's fault, the software's fault, your fault as a service provider. The intensity of my accusation about somebody else being at fault is directly proportional to it being my fault. So now I go on, when I contact any service provider with a problem, I say, I have messed up somewhere and I want you to help me. Can you help me fix it? It's something that I've done, I know. And uh, do you see that? And do people treat you and your team in an accusatory way because they're blaming the hardware or the software.
I've seen a good mixture, and I've never thought about that statement at all. But yeah, I've seen a good mixture of both ways. Um, I'll have clients call me, "What are we doing wrong? Why is this not doing what I expected to do? So I must be doing something wrong." And then I have clients that, "Well, you sold me this product. Why isn't it working perfectly?" And so yeah, so I see it both. What's human nature? What gets the best response is when you assume that your approach. Now you may actually know it's not your fault,
It's safer that way.
but it might be more logical that you take that approach. I must have done something wrong. Can you help me resolve this? You're disarming the situation and not accusing them, and that makes that tech want to work more with you better. I mean, that's any call you make to any service.
And I also find that because service providers, especially tech support providers, get a fair amount of negative feedback, that thanking them honestly, not just BSing them, but a good thank you goes a long way. And a Starbucks gift card goes even further, depending on where they are.
And again, that's not strictly IT. That's anything. That's dealing with clients. One of my favorite, nice thank you. One of my favorite things to do is kind of a little off the kilt from that is for Christmas time, I go around and give treats to my clients and just thank them. I have my wife makes this nice little delicious chocolate truffle, Oreo based, coated in icing of some sort, candy icing of some sort, and deliver them to clients. And just to say, hey, thank you, really appreciate you.
Yep. I thought you said trees at first, that you're taking a Christmas tree around to your clients. That's a big lift. Well, so how can people contact you? What are the best ways to do that? Website, email, phone, give us all of them. And we'll also put them in the show notes.
Oh, okay, sure. So my website is CBS, just like wherever my icon is right there. Community Business Solutions, CBSLLC.net, actually, .net.
Oh, okay.
Company phone number is, talking about the system and using the voice over IP system, 813-522-5986, extension 4 for myself. And then email is ldavis for Larry Davis at cbsllc.net.
Got it. Well, thank you so much for being with us. Really informative, some good tips that all of us can use. And I really appreciate the fact that you are truly community oriented, as your name implies, and really working to connect people that need something, even if it's not your service. So
exactly, it comes back to you, Mark. You put it out there, it comes back to you.
All right. So we'll put his contact information down in the show notes. Be sure to reach out to Larry for that. And I want to thank everybody for sitting in on this podcast. I always enjoy doing it. I always learn a lot, and certainly did today. If you like the podcast, please click the thumbs up and subscribe and click the notification bell. If you want more information on our services, you can go to www.OutMarket.Pro, and we're digital marketing specialists, and we have other outsourced services as well, and you can access those from that website. So thanks again. We'll see you next time. And Larry, thank you again.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. Have a good one.